Parliament is a massive, scary building.
Parliament is transparent building.
We were finally here to meet those who represent us. This is the Slovenian MEP, Tanja Fajon, trying to make us comfortable.
I have been in the Parliament since 2009, so it's my first mandate. I can say I'm a newcomer, though I know the institution pretty well. I've been here in Brussels living before as a journalist and correspondent for EU affairs. And for that, I can say today I, in a way, stepped on the other side, but I can deal with the content, so I can shape the legislation. This moves every Friday to Strasbourg when we have a Strasbourg session.
Oh my God.
So imagine more than 700 boxes. No, they go with a big. Kosovo, as you know, it's a very sensitive issue and it's a very delicate issue. We are in the Parliament trying very hard that Kosovo would open the visa dialogue process, because I think it's very important that the country doesn't stay too isolated, because we are facing growing frustration and people cannot really travel free. It's like a black spot on the map of the Western Balkans. For that reason, I think it is very necessary that European Union would start a dialogue with Kosovo, which means to put on the table clearly all the technical conditions what Kosovo has to do.
Oh, look, you have a picture of Bayram Recep.
Yes. To enter as well visa-free regime means that you have to have safe borders, means that you have to have safe documents, and people should really respect obligations. For me, it was difficult to understand, coming from Slovenia, which is only a few hundred kilometers away, that there is still a country with young generation which is close behind the border. So it's sometimes not easy to understand, but I think that the education, the access to the web, what is important for young people, opens new perspectives. And I deeply hope that with entering visa-free regime, it will open as well new European perspective to young generation. Who has signed it already?
It's
Noel Malcolm.
Noel Malcolm. It's a historian from UK. Mimosa
Mimosa,
Ah,
she's
was
an
the jet
engineer.
engine designer.
Here, should I
And
sign
this is
it?
the Meredith, Lawrence Meredith from the European Commission.
So I sign it here,
Yeah.
okay?
When I go to Kosovo, I meet all levels of society, from government, prime minister, to opposition parties, to media, to friends I have by now, to people from think tanks. I go to different parts of the country. I've been to Prizren, I've been to Pjesa, I've been to the north, I've been to North Mitrovica. I met Kosovo Serbs in the north, those who try to live in Kosovo. I've been known to be rather frank in my opinions, so I've been criticizing government when I think I have to. I've been greeting it and saluting it for positive things. The very positive thing I found that there's so many young people like you. I really like that, and I think it's something where I always argue with the ministers of the interior who do not want to start the visa dialogue, telling them, these young people, they want to know what this hailed European Union is about. How do you want to keep them there and isolate them there? It doesn't have to do as much with Kosovo. It has to do with right-wing and extreme right-wing parties who are very nationalist and very racist in a way, getting stronger, who don't want any more foreigners. And unfortunately, Kosovo's image in the EU is not a very good one. It has to do with the war. It has to do with sort of having fought a war against Serbia, with like guerrilla fighters. It has to do with things like corruption and organized crime, which is not only in Kosovo, it's in other parts as well. But it's sort of this image which isn't helpful, and so there is this image of those Kosovars, no, we don't want them anymore. The ministers of interior don't think of you, they just think of their own electorate and of people and of these right-wing parties. What is so important for young people, and you probably know that as well, is really get an education, and study and learn as much as you can, as young as you are. Keep an independent mind, learn to be daring, learn to be courageous, it might be difficult for a moment, but then you grow with that as a person as well. EU, Kosovo is also Europe. We mingled that up.
Що ми тут покажемо
On the path of future EU integrations, what do you think is going to pose let's say, the biggest problem on Kosovo's way toward the European Union?
From our perspective in the EU, I think I would highlight four. The first is the rule of law. It's important that the government makes much more substantial efforts to tackle organised crime and corruption. The second is public administration reform. I think it's extremely important that the government builds on what's already been done and really develops the capacity of public administration, which is still weak. And thirdly, I would say the economy. We were particularly concerned to see the government go off track with the International Monetary Fund programme. We think that's regrettable, and we would vigorously encourage them to get back on track with the IMF. And fourthly, of course, there are issues of the integration of all the communities in Kosovo, and I mean, we in this year's report we will be recognising the efforts made to integrate, in particular, the Serb community south of the Ibar River, but expressing concern that very little has happened with regard to integration in the north. This year, that's of particular importance. I think that the recently established Ministry of European Integration has had a big role to play in strengthening the government's engagement with the European Union and in coordinating more effectively the work of the different departments. And I think you can see that in the way we've now had 2 complete cycles of what we call the Stabilisation and Association Process dialogue. I think you can see a real commitment and an increasing professionalism in the way Kosovo has handled those meetings.
We are on our way to a final meeting with a lobbyist.
Is lobbying derived from lobby?
It is. It originally starts from America, which is the home of lobbying, where literally there used to be in the House of Representatives or the Senate, there used to be a group of people who would stand outside in the lobby and who would try to get hold of the politicians to get their point across, and that was called lobbying. My clients are usually in the private sector, and if you like, I act as a facilitator of communication between them and the institutions, because oftentimes people in the institutions will talk about laws, etc., and people in the private sector will talk about doing business. And if what I try to do is bring those two worlds together. One of the things about Brussels is to make a decision, an awful lot of people are involved. So you have people who sit in that building over there, which is the European Commission, who come up with proposals for legislation. So we have to know who are the people who hold the pen and who are drafting the legislation. We also need to know which politician at the top of the Commission will make the political decision to go ahead with that proposal. And then we need to look at what legal basis is used for deciding the decisions and how many people are involved from the Commission. You need to work through the system and work through all the key people that are involved and make sure you have the right messages to put forward to them at the right time and in the right format that they can understand it.
So this is our last stop, Brussels. I don't know if I should be feeling sad or happy that I'm leaving.
You've been very good today. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm happy that I'm going to be seeing my friends and family. Sad that this trip's ending. It's been a lot of fun and a lot of stress as well.
It's the end of our trip, for which I'm sorry about. Home is where heart is, and definitely my heart is in Pristina, and I can't wait to go back. I've learned a lot as a citizen, especially I've learned a lot how to behave in a very developed country. I compared to where I live, and I know that there are 2 different worlds. I hope that the new generation is going to bring the new spirit, and I hope that everyone's going to try their best to develop our country in different aspects. I know that I'm going to need a lot more visas to travel for who knows how many years. I also wanted to point out that, you know, I enjoyed working with the whole team, but especially with Bojan. And you know, Bojan, you have quite a big head, you know that. And I have quite a small head, which means yours is bigger and smarter, obviously.
Sisters,